My divorce lawyer did not ask for his texts first. She asked for the alarm logs. At the time, that sounded almost ridiculous. Texts made sense. Bank statements made sense. Hotel receipts, phone records, deleted photos, all of that sounded like the kind of evidence people were supposed to bring when a marriage cracked open. But the alarm logs? I remember sitting across from Denise Archer in a conference room that smelled like coffee and printer toner, holding a folder in my lap like it might burn through my skirt. Denise had silver hair, navy glasses, and the calm of a woman who had seen too many people confuse panic with strategy. She clicked her pen once and said, "Your house may have kept a better record than your husband did." Then she highlighted 2 entries from the weekend I was in Charlotte for a presentation. Friday night. 11:42 p.m. Front door disarmed. User, Emma Carter. Saturday night. 12:16 a.m. Front door disarmed. User, Emma Carter. Emma was our babysitter. My husband was supposed to be home with our children. And Emma was not supposed to be anywhere near our front door after midnight. That was the first time I understood something I wish I had understood earlier. A house does not know betrayal. It does not know marriage. It does not know loneliness, guilt, attraction, excuses, panic, or whatever softer word people use when they want the damage to sound less deliberate. A house only knows when a door opens. And sometimes that is enough. Before that weekend, I would have told you my marriage was ordinary. Not perfect. Ordinary. There is a difference. Perfect marriages are usually either very new or very fictional. Ordinary marriages have grocery lists stuck to the fridge, arguments about laundry, half-finished conversations interrupted by children, and 2 people who still choose each other through the small boredom of a shared life. That was what I thought I had. My husband, Nathan, and I had been married for 11 years. We met in graduate school, back when he owned 3 shirts and believed meal prepping meant buying 2 burritos and saving one for later. He was charming in an unpolished way then. Funny without trying too hard. The kind of man who could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with 3 phone numbers, a job lead, and someone's dog sitting in his lap. I was the opposite. Organized. Prepared. Not unfriendly, exactly, just not casually open. My friends used to joke that I dated Nathan because he made life less scheduled, and he married me because I kept him from accidentally wandering into traffic. They were not entirely wrong. For a long time, we balanced each other. I remembered the dentist appointments. He remembered how to make rainy Saturdays feel like holidays. I kept a spreadsheet for Christmas gifts. He made up bedtime stories so good our children once booed me when I tried to read an actual book instead. We had 2 kids. Ava was 8, all elbows and opinions, convinced she would someday be a veterinarian, fashion designer, and Supreme Court justice if time allowed. Mason was 5 and still carried a stuffed fox named Rocket everywhere, even to the bathroom, which felt unhygienic but emotionally important. Our house was in a quiet neighborhood outside Raleigh. 3 bedrooms. A small backyard. A maple tree that shed leaves like it was being paid by the pound. A front porch Nathan promised to repaint every spring and never did. I loved that house. Not because it was fancy. Because it felt like proof. Proof that 2 people could build something steady. Proof that my childhood fear of everything falling apart had been answered by mortgage statements, school calendars, and a junk drawer full of batteries no one had tested since 2019. The alarm system was my idea. Nathan called it excessive at first. Not because he opposed safety, but because he disliked anything with an app and a monthly subscription. "We live on a street where people apologize to squirrels," he said when the installer came. I told him I traveled too much for work to pretend a deadbolt and neighborhood politeness were enough. At the time, I was a regional sales director for a medical software company. That sounds more glamorous than it was. Mostly it meant airports, conference rooms, hotel coffee, and trying to convince hospital administrators that our platform would reduce workflow friction, which is a phrase no actual nurse has ever said out loud. I traveled maybe once a month. Sometimes more. Nathan worked from home as a marketing consultant, which meant he was usually the flexible parent. He handled school pickup when I was away, made pancakes on Saturdays, knew which stuffed animals were allowed in which child's bed, and had once driven across town at 9 p.m. because Ava remembered she needed poster board for a project due the next morning. He was not a careless father. That is part of what made everything harder. If he had been obviously selfish, obviously detached, obviously cruel, I might have trusted my suspicions sooner. But Nathan was good at the parts of family life that people could see. And even better at the parts that made him feel loved. The alarm system had individual codes. Mine. Nathan's. My mother's. Our neighbor Mr. Donnelly's, because he watered plants when we traveled and had lived next door since before we moved in. And Emma's. Emma Carter. Our babysitter. Emma was 21, a senior at the local university, majoring in elementary education. She had been with us for almost 2 years. She was punctual, gentle with Mason, patient with Ava's endless courtroom arguments, and somehow able to get both kids into pajamas without threatening to cancel dessert, which made her more qualified than either of us on certain nights. She was pretty, yes. People always ask that, as if the story changes shape depending on whether the babysitter looked like a movie character. She was pretty in the way many 21-year-olds are pretty when they still sleep enough and have not yet learned how expensive dental work can be. But what mattered to me was that she was trusted. She knew the kids' routines. She knew Mason needed the hallway light on. She knew Ava would claim she hated carrots but eat them if you called them orange fries. She knew the alarm code because sometimes Nathan and I came home late from work dinners, and it made sense for her to lock up properly. That was the thing about trust. It always made sense until it didn't. The weekend everything started, I was flying to Charlotte for a leadership conference. It was supposed to be a big opportunity for me. Not life-changing exactly, but close enough that I bought a new blazer and practiced my presentation in the bathroom mirror like a nervous college freshman. Our company was pitching a partnership that could put me in line for a vice president role. I had spent 6 weeks building the deck, rewriting speaker notes, rehearsing transitions, and pretending I was not terrified of presenting in front of executives who used the word alignment like punctuation. Nathan knew how important it was. The morning I left, he made coffee before I came downstairs. Ava sat at the kitchen island eating cereal and reading the back of the box like it contained classified information. Mason was on the floor making Rocket the Fox drive a wooden train. Nathan handed me my travel mug and kissed my forehead. You're going to crush it. I might throw up on a Marriott podium. Strong opening. Memorable. I laughed because he was good at that. Making me lighter before hard things. He walked me to the garage and put my suitcase in the car. Don't worry about anything here, he said. I've got the kids. I've got dinner. I've got bedtime. I am a domestic machine. You forgot pajama day last month. A machine with historical flaws. I kissed him goodbye. That moment replayed in my head later more times than I can count. Not because it was dramatic. Because it was normal. The most painful betrayals do not begin with thunder. Sometimes they begin with coffee and a joke in the garage. My flight was delayed, my hotel room smelled faintly of bleach, and by Friday evening I was so tired my bones felt carbonated. I ate a room service salad at the desk while going over my presentation for the 100th time. Around 11:30, I was standing in the bathroom, practicing the first 2 minutes quietly so I would not sound robotic the next day, when my phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced down expecting a text from Nathan. Instead, it was a security notification. Front door disarmed. User, Emma Carter. For a second, I just stared at it. Not because I understood. Because I didn't. Emma? At 11:42 p.m.? My first thought was not that Nathan was cheating. I know people may not believe that, but it is true. My first thought was that something had happened to the kids. Maybe Mason woke up sick. Maybe Ava had a fever. Maybe Nathan called Emma because he needed to take one child to urgent care and did not want to bring the other. But if that were true, why had he not called me? I called him. Straight to voicemail. I texted. Everything okay? No reply. I called again. Voicemail. The hotel bathroom suddenly felt too small. I opened the alarm app and checked the live status. System disarmed. No emergency alerts. No motion alarms. No glass break alerts. No police dispatch. I checked the nursery camera. That is what we still called Mason's room even though he was 5 and would be deeply offended if he knew. The camera showed his bed. He was asleep, one arm thrown over Rocket. Hallway light on. I checked Ava's room. Her camera was mostly useless because she had angled it toward the ceiling months earlier in protest of surveillance culture, but I could hear the small white noise machine and see enough blanket shape to know she was in bed. So the kids were home. Asleep. Emma was entering our house. Nathan was not answering. I sat on the closed toilet lid with my phone in both hands and tried to be reasonable. Maybe Nathan was in the shower. Maybe his phone died. Maybe Emma left something earlier and came back to get it. Maybe Nathan had asked her to come by because he needed help with something. Maybe. Marriage teaches you to make room for another person's explanation. That is usually a good thing. That night, it became a trap. At 11:56 p.m., the system armed again. User, Nathan Bennett. So he was home. He had his phone or at least access to the panel. He still had not called me back. At 12:03 a.m., he texted. All good. Sorry, phone was upstairs. Kids asleep. You okay? I stared at the message. My thumbs hovered. Why was Emma there? That was the obvious question. Instead, I wrote, alarm said Emma came in. His reply took longer. Only 40 seconds maybe. It felt like 10 minutes. Oh yeah, she stopped by. Left her charger here from Thursday. Didn't want it sitting outside because it looked like rain. It was not raining in Raleigh. I opened the weather app. Clear. 71 degrees. Then I told myself maybe it had rained earlier. Maybe he meant it looked like rain. Maybe the charger mattered. Maybe Emma needed it for work. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was letting a security notification turn into a story. The phrase Nathan used later came to me before he ever said it. The system only tells you a door opened. It doesn't tell you why. I slept badly. The presentation the next morning went well, somehow. Better than well. People asked real questions. The regional VP shook my hand and said, "You made the operational case very cleanly." I called Nathan afterward from the hallway outside the ballroom, still buzzing with adrenaline. This time he answered on the second ring. Hey, superstar. I hated how relieved I felt. How are the kids? Alive. Federal currently building a pillow fort that may violate zoning laws. He sounded normal. Too normal or just normal? That became the question I asked myself for weeks. What happened with Emma last night? I asked. I tried to keep my voice casual. Oh, the charger thing? Yeah. Nothing. She texted me that she left it in the kitchen. I told her she could grab it. I didn't want to wake you over a charger before your big day. There it was. A thoughtful reason. A reason that made my suspicion feel ungrateful. I looked down at the conference carpet, blue and gold swirls designed by someone who hated the human eye. It was almost midnight. I know. College kids keep weird hours. Why didn't she just get it today? I don't know, Mara. Maybe she needed it. He said my name gently. Not irritated. Gently. That made it worse. You okay? He asked. I'm fine. You sound weird. I didn't sleep. Because of the presentation? Yes. The lie came easily because I wanted it to be true. Saturday night, the conference ended with drinks in the hotel bar. I do not usually drink much at work events because nothing good happens when middle managers discover bourbon, but that night I had one glass of wine and let myself enjoy being congratulated. People were laughing. My boss said the VP had been impressed. Someone ordered fries for the table. For a few minutes, I felt like the version of myself who had not sat in a hotel bathroom staring at an alarm notification. Then my phone buzzed. Front door disarmed. User, Emma Carter. 12:16 a.m. The bar noise blurred. I remember staring at the notification until the words stopped looking like words. Emma again. After midnight again. My husband home with our sleeping children again. This time I did not call him. That is important. I wanted to. Every part of me wanted to step into the lobby, call Nathan, and demand an explanation before he had time to build one. But something cold and precise moved through me. If there was an innocent reason, it would still be innocent tomorrow. If there was a lie, calling now would only teach him where to patch it. So I took a screenshot. Then I opened the alarm app. Disarmed. Front door. User, Emma Carter. I watched the live status for 23 minutes. At 12:39 a.m., the system armed again. User, Nathan Bennett. I took another screenshot. No call from Nathan. No text. No mention of charger. No mention of emergency. Nothing. The next morning, he called while I was packing. Hey. How's my corporate assassin? I closed my suitcase slowly. Tired. When do you land? Around 4. Kids and I made welcome home signs. Mason drew what he insists is an airplane but looks like a potato with wings. I almost smiled. Then remembered the notification. I waited. He did not bring it up. That silence told me more than his Friday explanation. A man who innocently let the babysitter retrieve a charger at midnight might mention the second visit. A man trying to avoid a pattern would not. I came home Sunday afternoon to construction paper signs taped to the garage door. Welcome home, Mommy. Ava's letters were huge and dramatic. Mason had drawn 3 airplanes, all potato-shaped, plus one figure he said was me, being very brave at a meeting. Nathan hugged me in the kitchen. Long, warm, familiar. He smelled like laundry detergent and the cedar soap I bought him every Christmas. You did it, he said into my hair. I stood there with my hands against his back and thought, did you? Did you bring her here? Did you lie to me while our kids slept upstairs? Did you use the home I trusted you with as a place I would never think to look? Out loud, I said, I'm exhausted. He kissed my temple. Go shower. I've got dinner. He was good that evening. That is a detail I hate. He made pasta. He listened to Ava explain a conflict at school involving 2 best friends and a glitter pen. He helped Mason find Rocket when the fox got trapped under the couch. He asked about my presentation and seemed proud in all the right places. At 9, after the kids were asleep, he poured me tea. Not wine. Tea. Because he knew wine kept me awake. How was the house? I asked. He looked up from loading the dishwasher. What do you mean? While I was gone. Fine. No issues? No. Why? There are moments in a marriage when the person across from you gives you an opening. A small one. A place where they could step back toward honesty without losing everything. Nathan had one there. He could have said Emma came by again. He could have said there was something he should explain. He could have said anything. Instead, he dried his hands on a dish towel and smiled. Did the alarm app freak you out again? Again. That was how I knew he remembered Friday. But he did not volunteer Saturday. I shrugged. It logged some things. He leaned against the counter. Mara, the system is glitchy. It once said your mom disarmed the back door when she was in Florida. That was because you assigned her old code to the painter for one day. He blinked. Then laughed lightly. Okay, security manager. That was Nathan's talent. Turning a correction into a personality trait. Not cruel enough to fight over. Just enough to make you feel a little rigid. A little too serious. A little difficult. I let the conversation end. That night, while he slept beside me, I lay awake and watched the ceiling fan turn. The woman I had been on Thursday would have rolled over and asked him. The woman I became by Sunday night got out of bed at 2:14 a.m., took my laptop to the guest room, and logged into the security dashboard. I had never used the full dashboard before. The phone app showed basic events. The web portal showed more. Device history. User history. Code changes. Sensor activity. Camera connection logs. Nothing dramatic. Just data. That is what made it frightening. I filtered by Emma's code. Friday 11:42 p.m., front door disarmed. Friday 11:45 p.m., living room motion. Friday 11:48 p.m., kitchen motion. Friday 11:56 p.m., system armed by Nathan. Saturday 12:16 a.m., front door disarmed. Saturday 12:19 a.m., living room motion. Saturday 12:22 a.m., hallway motion. Saturday 12:39 a.m., system armed by Nathan. Hallway motion. Not kitchen. Not charger. Hallway. The hallway camera did not record continuously. We had set it that way for privacy. It captured still frames only when motion triggered during armed or disarmed transitions. I opened the frame from Saturday at 12:22 a.m. It was blurry. Black and white. But it showed Emma. Not holding a charger. Not wearing a jacket. She was walking down the hallway in our house wearing jeans and a sweatshirt, her hair pulled back, her face turned away from the camera. Behind her, Nathan's hand was visible at the edge of the frame. Just his hand. On the small of her back. I closed the laptop. Then opened it again. Because denial is not the absence of evidence. It is the need to look twice. I did not wake him. I do not say that as a point of pride. I say it because people imagine they would behave dramatically in that moment. They would scream. Throw the laptop. Wake the neighbors. Demand truth under the harsh light of the guest room. Maybe some people would. I went to the bathroom and threw up as quietly as I could because my children were asleep. Then I brushed my teeth, washed my face, and went back to bed beside my husband. He was sleeping on his side, one hand under his cheek, mouth slightly open. He looked ordinary. That felt obscene. The next morning, I made lunches. Ava wanted turkey, no mustard. Mason wanted peanut butter cut into triangles because squares were too business. Nathan came downstairs in sweatpants, kissed the top of my head, and asked if I had slept. No, still keyed up from the trip? Something like that. He poured coffee. I watched him move through the kitchen, opening cabinets, humming under his breath. The same man who had carried our daughter around the house when she had croup. The same man who cried when Mason was born. The same man whose hand had been on Emma's back in a hallway frame at 12:22 a.m. That was the cruelest part. Betrayal does not erase the good history. It corrupts it retroactively. Every sweet memory becomes evidence you no longer know how to read. After school drop-off, I called the security company. The customer service representative's name was Paula, and she sounded like she had already handled 6 calls that morning from people who forgot their passwords and blamed the app. I asked if user logs could be edited. No, ma'am. Usernames can be changed going forward, but historical event logs remain attached to the code ID. You can export them. Can video frames be deleted? From your local view, yes, depending on settings. From cloud backup, only after the retention period unless you request archive export. How long is retention? 30 days on your plan. 30 days. I requested an export. Paula asked if there had been a break-in. I looked at the kitchen table, where Mason had left a plastic dinosaur facing a banana like it was about to negotiate. No, I said. Not exactly. Then she said something I would later write down. The system can tell you a door opened. It can't tell you why. I almost laughed. Everyone wanted to tell me that. The system could not tell me why. But people lie about why. Systems do not lie about when. I did not confront Nathan that day. Instead, I started building the timeline. I checked our shared calendar. Friday night, Nathan home with kids. Saturday night, Nathan home with kids. No sitter scheduled. I checked Emma's usual payments in our bank account. Nothing from that weekend. If she had babysat, we had not paid her through the normal app. I checked my texts with Emma. The last message was from the previous Wednesday confirming she could watch the kids the following Thursday while Nathan and I attended a school fundraiser. Nothing after that. Then I checked Nathan's messages. Not his phone. I did not have his phone. Our family tablets synced some messages because it used to be connected to his Apple ID before we set up the kids' games. Mostly spam and old threads came through randomly. Emma's thread was not there. That could have meant nothing. Or it could have meant he had turned off syncing. Or deleted. That was the madness of suspicion. Every absence became a clue. Every normal thing became staged. Every explanation had a shadow. On Tuesday, I asked Mr. Donnelly if his porch camera had been working over the weekend. I tried to sound casual. He was trimming his roses, wearing a sun hat so wide it looked like he was preparing to interview a president. Everything okay? He asked. Yes. I think there might have been a package issue. Mr. Donnelly narrowed his eyes. He was 72, retired from the postal service, and allergic to vague stories. A package issue after midnight? I looked at him. He looked at me. Then he set down the pruning shears. I saw the sitter's car, he said. My stomach dropped. What? Friday and Saturday. The little silver Corolla. Parked across from your driveway, not in it. Thought that was odd. What time? Late. How late? He took off one glove slowly. Late enough that I noticed because I was letting Baxter out. Baxter was his ancient dog, who had the bladder of a thimble and the moral authority of a judge. Did you see her leave? Friday, maybe midnight. Saturday, closer to 1. I gripped the porch railing. Mr. Donnelly's face softened. Mara. I don't know what's going on yet. That was not true. I knew enough. I just did not know how much I could survive knowing. He nodded. My camera keeps 7 days. Want me to pull it? I swallowed. Yes, please. That evening, Nathan said I seemed distracted. I was cutting carrots for dinner. Ava was doing homework at the table. Mason was making Rocket the fox inspect the dishwasher. Nathan came up behind me and put his hands on my shoulders. You okay? I almost flinched. That made me angry. Not at myself. At him. Because he had turned ordinary touch into a question. I'm fine, I said. He squeezed gently. You sure? I turned the knife in my hand and set it down very carefully. Yes. He searched my face. For a moment, I wondered if he knew I knew. Then Mason yelled that Rocket had found dish soap treasure, and Nathan went to investigate. That night, after the kids went to bed, I asked him directly. Did Emma come by Saturday? He looked up from his phone. There it was. The half second. Small enough that a person who wanted peace might miss it. Big enough that a wife who had not slept properly in 3 nights could feel it in her teeth. Saturday? Yes. I don't think so. You don't think so? He put his phone down. What's going on? The alarm log says she did. He sighed. Not guilty. Tired. Like I was making something tedious. Mara, again with the alarm? Was she here? I don't remember. She was here after midnight. He frowned. Maybe she stopped by for something. That was your Friday explanation. So did she leave something again? He stood and walked to the sink, rinsed a glass that was already clean, and said, I don't like this tone. That sentence changed me. Not because it was the worst thing he said. Because it showed me the path he planned to take. Not answer. Object to the way I asked. Shift the subject from what happened to how I sounded. I said, I'm asking why our babysitter used her code to enter our house after midnight while I was away. And I'm telling you I don't appreciate being interrogated like I'm a suspect. You're acting like one. His face changed. There was the real anger. Fast. Hot. Do you hear yourself? Yes. You went to Charlotte for 3 days and came back treating our home like a crime scene. I looked at him. Our home. Like a crime scene. That line landed somewhere deep. Because he was right about one thing. I had started treating it like a crime scene. But only because he had turned it into a place where evidence mattered. I said, did you invite Emma over? He rubbed his face. She was upset. I went still. What? She was having some issue with her roommate or boyfriend or something. She texted me. I told her she could stop by and talk because she trusts us. Us. He said us. Like I had been involved in the midnight counseling sessions I knew nothing about. She came over after midnight to talk. I didn't want to worry you before your presentation. There it was again. The thoughtful husband defense. Protecting my focus. Protecting my sleep. Protecting me from information that would have required him to tell the truth. How many times? He hesitated. Just the 2. Why didn't you tell me? Because I knew you'd react like this. That is a special kind of lie. The kind that uses your reaction to justify the secrecy that caused it. I laughed once. It sounded awful. He crossed his arms. Emma is practically family, Mara. Practically family. That one hurt. Because it had been true. That was why the code made sense. That was why she knew our children's routines. That was why I had trusted her in my house. That was also why using her code to lie broke something beyond marriage. It broke the safety chain around my children. Was she here while the kids were asleep? Yes. Did they know? No, so a 21-year-old employee was in our house after midnight while our children slept, and I didn't know. You're making it sound worse than it was. What was it? He looked away. Mara. What was it? Nothing happened. There it was. The phrase everyone uses after something has already happened. Nothing happened. I did not answer. I went upstairs, took a shower, and cried where the water could hide the sound. The next day, the security export arrived. So did Mr. Donnelly's camera clips. Not enough to show inside the house. Enough. Friday, 11:39 p.m., Emma's Corolla pulling up across the street. Friday, 11:41 p.m., Emma walking toward our porch. Friday, 11:58 p.m., Emma leaving. Saturday, 12:13 a.m., Emma arriving again. Saturday, 12:43 a.m., Emma leaving. On Saturday, Nathan stepped onto the porch after her. He was visible for 3 seconds. Barefoot. T-shirt. Hand raised in a small wave. Not emergency. Not roommate crisis. Not a charger. A goodbye. I watched that clip so many times the video player controls burned into my memory. 3 seconds. Barefoot. Wave. People think proof feels satisfying. It does not. Proof is heavy. Proof removes the last place your hope can hide. The midpoint came 2 days later when I found the code setting. I was in the security dashboard, looking at user permissions, because I had decided to remove Emma's code before speaking to her. My hand hovered over deactivate. Then I noticed something strange. Emma's code name had been changed. Not in the visible log export. In the notification settings. On Thursday afternoon, the day before I flew to Charlotte, someone had edited Emma's user profile so real-time push notifications would display only guest access instead of her full name. But my phone app had updated late because I had not refreshed the user cache. That was why I still saw Emma. Nathan had tried to make future notifications less specific. He had not expected the system to fail in my favor. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open while Mason watched cartoons in the living room. I was so still I could hear the refrigerator hum. Thursday afternoon. Before I left. Before the first alert. Before the charger. Before the roommate crisis. Before, I didn't want to worry you. He had changed the system. Not in panic. Not after a mistake. Before. People kept asking me later if I thought the affair was planned. I always hated that question. Because planned makes people imagine calendars and hotel rooms and secret credit cards. Nathan was smarter than that. He planned the part that mattered. He planned what I would see. He did not need to control the whole lie. He only needed to control the first notification. If my phone had said guest access instead of Emma Carter, I might have looked at it, frowned, and assumed the system was being weird. I might have gone back to practicing my presentation. I might have slept. I might have come home to a husband who had already survived the first night of lying to me. That was the real betrayal in the dashboard. Not that he made a mistake. That he prepared for my ignorance. I exported the user settings. Screenshotted the change history. Printed everything at the library because I did not want our home printer becoming part of another conversation. Then I called a lawyer. Denise did not ask me if I wanted a divorce. She asked if my children were safe. That question broke me in a way the cheating had not. Because the answer was yes. Probably. Physically. But the fact that I had to think about it told me enough. I told her about the logs, the hallway frame, the neighbor footage, the code changes, the shifting explanations. She took notes. Then she asked, "Has he ever used the children to prevent you from acting?" I wanted to say no. Then I remembered. Don't do this before Ava's recital. Let's not ruin Mason's birthday. You're stressed from work. The kids need us calm. Every sentence reasonable by itself. Together, Annette. I don't know, I said. Denise looked at me over her glasses. That usually means yes, but not in a way you've named yet. I hired her before I left. Not because I was ready. Because I needed someone in the room who did not love Nathan's good qualities. When I got home, Nathan was making grilled cheese. He looked up, smiling. Where were you? Errands. What kind? The question was light. The old version of me would have answered automatically. The new version heard the entitlement underneath. The kind adults run during the day. He frowned. I walked past him and kissed Mason on the head. That evening, I did something I had never done before. I lied back. Not about what mattered. About timing. I told Nathan the security company had contacted me because of irregular access patterns and wanted to do a household code audit. He looked up too fast. What does that mean? They want to confirm who has codes and why. Insurance recommendation, apparently. Sounds unnecessary. I think it's useful. He stirred his soup without eating. Useful how? Everyone with access to our home should be verified. He did not answer. The next day, I texted Emma. Hi Emma. We're updating the home security access list. Can you stop by Thursday at 4 to return the spare key tag and confirm your code deletion? Nothing urgent. She replied 20 minutes later. Of course. Is everything okay? I wrote, yes. Just cleaning up access. Then I waited. Nathan texted me 6 minutes after Emma's reply. Why are you asking Emma to stop by? There it was. A thread I could pull. I wrote, because she has a house code. He called immediately. I let it ring. Then I texted, in a meeting. We can talk tonight. He replied, don't make this weird. That became the theme of the next 48 hours. Don't make this weird. Not, I lied. Not, I crossed a line. Not, I brought our babysitter into our house after midnight while you were gone. Don't make this weird. As if weirdness were something I was adding. On Thursday, I arranged for my mother to take the kids for ice cream after school. Nathan thought they had dentist appointments. I hated how easy lying became once I stopped assuming honesty was a shared rule. Emma arrived at 4:06 p.m. She looked younger than usual. That was the first thing I noticed. Not like a seductress. Not like a villain. Like a college student who had not slept. She wore leggings, an oversized sweatshirt, and no makeup. Her hair was in a messy bun, and she held her keys in both hands. Hi, she said. Come in. She stepped into the foyer and glanced toward the stairs. The same stairs she had climbed in the hallway frame. I closed the door behind her. She flinched at the sound. Where are the kids? With my mom. Oh. We stood there for a second. The house felt too quiet. I gestured toward the kitchen. Sit down. She sat at the island. Not in the chair she usually used when helping Ava with homework. A different one. As if she knew certain places were no longer available to her. I placed a printed access log on the counter between us. Her face changed before I said anything. That told me she knew what it was. I did not raise my voice. I had imagined this conversation many times. In some versions, I was furious. In some, she cried. In some, I asked cruel questions. In reality, I was tired. Emma, I said, I know you were here Friday and Saturday night while I was out of town. Her eyes filled immediately. I'm sorry. There it was. Not confusion. Not denial. Sorry. I gripped the edge of the counter. What happened? She looked down. He told me you knew. My stomach turned. What exactly did he tell you I knew? That things were complicated. That you both were basically separated but not telling people until after your work trip because of the kids. For a second, I heard a rushing sound in my ears. Separated. That was a new lie. A whole separate structure built inside my life without my knowledge. Emma wiped her face with her sleeve. I know that sounds stupid. It sounds like something he said. She looked up, surprised. He said you were focused on work. That you didn't really care what he did as long as he kept the house running. He said you both had an understanding. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because the alternative was making a sound I did not want to hear from myself. An understanding. She cried harder. I didn't know. I mean, should have. I knew it was wrong to come over. I knew. But he kept saying it was not my business to ask about your marriage. That sounded like Nathan. Precise enough to absolve himself. Vague enough to trap someone else. Emma told me later that Nathan never started with anything obvious. That was the part that made me cold. He did not begin by flirting. He began by being tired. A text after bedtime asking if Mason had seemed anxious lately. A joke about how I traveled so much that Emma probably knew the kids' evening routine better than he did. A message about how quiet the house felt after the children fell asleep. Then one night, he told her he and I were living like roommates. Not separated. Not yet. Just close enough to make her feel sorry for him, and vague enough that he could deny it later. That was how he worked. He did not ask Emma to betray me all at once. He moved the line 1 inch at a time, then acted surprised when everyone ended up on the wrong side of it. How long? I asked. She shook her head. It wasn't like that for long. That is not an answer. A few weeks of texting. Then the weekend. Had he invited you before that? She nodded, barely. But I didn't go. Why did you go when I was out of town? Her face collapsed. Because he said he needed someone. He said the house felt empty when you traveled. He said he couldn't talk to his friends because they all thought you two were perfect. The house felt empty. Our children were sleeping upstairs. I looked at Emma then and saw two truths at once. She had made choices. And she had been handled. Those truths did not cancel each other. Did you enter using your code because he asked you to? Yes. Did he ask you to park across the street? Her silence answered. Did he tell you he changed the notification settings? Her head snapped up. What? So she did not know that part. Good. One less accomplice. More importantly, one more witness. I slid the code change printout across the counter. Thursday afternoon, before I left, he changed your access notification name. Emma stared at the page. Her mouth opened. Closed. He said you didn't check that stuff. I closed my eyes. Not from pain. From confirmation. Behind us, the garage door opened. Nathan was home. Early. Of course he was. Emma looked terrified. I stayed still. Nathan walked into the kitchen with his laptop bag over one shoulder. He stopped when he saw us. The room became very quiet. For 1 second, all three of us were arranged like people in a stage play. The wife. The husband. The babysitter. The evidence on the counter. Nathan recovered first. What is this? I looked at him. A code audit. His eyes moved to Emma. Then to the papers. Then back to me. Mara. His tone was warning and pleading at once. I had heard it before. When Ava was about to knock over a vase. When Mason ran toward the street. When a situation needed to be stopped immediately. This time, I was the situation. I said, Emma was just explaining the separation I apparently agreed to. Emma covered her face. Nathan dropped his bag. This is not appropriate. I almost smiled. That word. Appropriate. What part? You ambushing her. She came here voluntarily. You dragged a 21-year-old into our marital problems. No, Nathan. You did that when you gave her a house code and a fictional version of our marriage. His face hardened. There it is. You already decided what happened. I have alarm logs, camera frames, code change history, and your neighbor waving from 3 angles. That last part was not true. Mr. Donnelly had only one camera angle. But Nathan did not know that. His face drained. Good. Emma whispered, you told me she knew. Nathan turned on her. I told you it was complicated. She flinched. I saw it. That tiny folding inward. Emma said, you told me she didn't care. I said we were in a rough patch. You said separated. I said it felt like we were. That was the collapse. Not a confession. Worse. A man trying to edit his own sentence while the people who heard it stood in front of him. I said, you told her we were separated. He looked at me. Then away. Mara, this got out of hand. Out of hand. As if the situation had grown legs. As if he had not fed it, scheduled it, coded it, and opened the door for it. I picked up the code change printout. You changed the alarm notification before I left. He swallowed. I was trying to avoid unnecessary drama. Emma stared at him. Unnecessary? Nathan snapped, you don't need to be part of this conversation. I said, she became part of it when you used her access to my home. He rounded on me. Our home. That was the second time he said it. Our home. Like the word our could still protect him. I said, not for this. He looked genuinely confused. That was when I realized he had expected anger, tears, maybe a threat to call Emma's parents or the school or whoever he thought I would punish first. He had not expected me to separate the categories. Emma was not my marriage. Emma was a bad decision, a manipulated young woman, and a person who would never be near my children again. Nathan was the betrayal. He said, nothing happened. Emma made a small sound. I looked at her. She looked down. Not nothing, then. I did not ask for details. I still have not. There are things that do not improve with pictures. The line had been crossed. The exact footprints did not matter. I said, Emma, you need to leave. She stood so fast the chair scraped. I'm sorry. I know. I really am. I believe that. Nathan stared at me. Maybe he expected me to scream at her. I did not. I said, you will not contact the kids. You will not come to this house. I'm deleting your code as soon as you leave. If Ava asks why you're not babysitting anymore, I will give an age-appropriate answer that does not humiliate you. That is the last protection I'm offering. She cried again. Thank you. Nathan looked offended by my mercy. That told me more than anger would have. Emma left. The front door closed. This time the house logged it. Front door opened. User, manual. I looked at Nathan. He said, you're being very controlled right now. I know. It's scary. No, I said. It's inconvenient for you. He laughed once, sharp. You always need proof. Always. You can't just have a feeling like a normal person. There it was. One of the lines that came back later. You always need proof. I looked at the papers on the counter. No. I needed proof because you kept asking me to ignore what I already knew. That shut him up for a second. Not long enough. He started talking. Of course he did. He said he had been lonely. He said I traveled too much. He said Emma had admired him in a way that made him feel seen. He said nothing serious happened until he already felt disconnected. He said I was always managing the house like a project. He said he could never make a mistake without me documenting it. He said the alarm system was a perfect metaphor for our marriage. Everything monitored, he said. Everything recorded. No room to breathe. I listened. That may sound strange. But I did. Because beneath the manipulation, there were probably fragments of real unhappiness. I was gone too much. I was controlling about routines. I did keep lists. I did like systems because systems made me feel safe. But none of that unlocked the door for Emma. None of that changed the code notification. None of that lied to a 21-year-old about my marriage. None of that waved goodbye barefoot on the porch at 12:43 a.m. When he finally stopped, I said, "Are you finished?" His face crumpled. "Mara, please." I had never heard him sound like that. I wished it moved me more. But something in me had gone quiet. "I spoke with a lawyer," I said. He stared. "What?" "I spoke with a lawyer. I'm not filing anything today. But you're going to stay somewhere else while we figure out what happens next." His expression changed again. Fear now. Real fear. "You can't kick me out of my house." "I'm not. I'm telling you the alternative is that I take the kids to my mother's tonight and let attorneys handle access tomorrow." "You would do that?" "You brought our babysitter into our home after midnight while our children slept upstairs and then lied about it for a week." He looked away. I continued. "You can tell yourself this is about an affair if that makes it simpler." "It isn't. It's about judgment. It's about the kids. It's about access to this house. It's about the fact that you used a trusted caregiver and a security system I installed to keep our family safe as cover." His eyes filled. "Don't make me a monster." I shook my head. "I'm not making you anything." That sentence landed harder than I expected. Because for once, I meant it. I was done shaping him. Good husband. Good father. Lonely man. Tempted man. Victim of my work schedule. Victim of my systems. He could decide what story helped him sleep. I had logs. He packed a bag that night. Slowly. Angrily. Then sadly. Then angrily again. The kids were still with my mother. I told them Daddy had a work situation and would call them tomorrow. That was not a permanent explanation. It was a bridge. Sometimes parenting during crisis is just building bridges short enough to survive until morning. After Nathan left, I walked through the house and changed every code. Mine. My mother's. Mr. Donnelly's. The cleaner's. The old painter code that should have been deleted a year earlier. Emma's code I removed entirely. Then I created a new master code. Not because I wanted control. Because I had learned the hard way that access is not love. Access is access. It should be given carefully, reviewed regularly, and revoked when someone mistakes trust for opportunity. At 11:03 p.m., the app sent me a notification. System armed. User, Mara. For the first time all week, I breathed. The fallout was not clean. Stories like this rarely are. Nathan wanted to come home after 2 nights. I said no. He said I was punishing the kids. I said the kids were exactly why I was moving slowly. He said I had turned one mistake into a legal situation. I sent him the code change timestamp. He stopped calling it one mistake. Then he called it a spiral. Then a crisis. Then an emotional lapse. Then a terrible chapter. People rename things when the first name makes them look guilty. By the second week, Nathan had stopped denying the timeline. That was when he changed strategies. He started calling it surveillance. Not the affair. Not the midnight visits. Not the code change. Surveillance. He told his sister I had become obsessed with the alarm system. He told his best friend I was tracking every movement in the house. He told my mother, very gently, that he was worried I had not been myself since the Charlotte trip. That was the first time I understood how dangerous a half-truth can be. Because yes, I was checking the logs. Yes, I was printing records. Yes, I was watching old camera frames at 2 in the morning. But I was not doing those things because I was unstable. I was doing them because every time I asked for the truth, he handed me a softer lie. Emma emailed me once. I did not answer immediately. When I did, I wrote 3 sentences. I hope you learn from this. You cannot work for our family again. Please do not contact the children. She replied, I understand. I'm sorry. I believed her. I still did not forgive her in the way people mean when they want everything washed clean. Forgiveness is not a reset code. 3 days after Emma left my kitchen, she sent me one more email. The subject line was just, I think you should have this. There were 4 screenshots attached. Not anything graphic. Worse, in a way. Nathan telling her I was emotionally gone from the marriage. Nathan saying we were waiting until after my promotion situation to talk about separation. Nathan telling her not to use the driveway because Mr. Donnelly was nosy. Nathan writing, don't use the front camera side if you can help it. The app gets weird. I read that last line 6 times. The app gets weird. That was what he called evidence when he thought only she would read it. Emma's email ended with 1 sentence. I know this doesn't fix what I did, but I don't want him to keep saying you imagined it. That was the first useful apology she gave me. I forwarded the screenshots to Denise. She replied 12 minutes later. This matters. No exclamation point. No dramatic legal language. Just. This matters. Ava asked about Emma a week later. We were driving home from school, and she was staring out the window with the serious expression she got when preparing to cross-examine someone. Is Emma not coming anymore? I gripped the steering wheel. No, why? She made some choices that broke our trust. Ava thought about that. Did she steal something? I almost said no. Then stopped. Trust, maybe. Safety, definitely. But not in a way an 8-year-old should carry. Not exactly, I said. But adults can break rules too. Is Dad mad? I looked at her in the rearview mirror. Ava was too smart. That had always been obvious. Now it was inconvenient. Dad is sad, I said carefully. And I am sad. But we both love you and Mason. She looked back out the window. Are you getting divorced? There it was. No warning. No soft lead-in. Children do that. They walk straight into rooms adults are still trying to decorate. I don't know yet, I said. Her eyes filled, but she nodded. Thank you for not lying. I had to pull over. Not because I was crying too hard to drive. Because I did not want to drive through the moment my daughter became old enough to thank me for honesty. Nathan and I went to counseling twice. Not marriage counseling. Discernment counseling. That was Denise Archer's suggestion. Clarity before repair, she said. Nathan hated that phrase. He wanted repair first. Repair sounded hopeful. Clarity sounded like a room with fluorescent lights. In the second session, the therapist asked him why he had changed the alarm notification settings. Nathan spoke for almost 3 minutes without answering. He said he had been stressed. He said he felt watched. He said he knew how I reacted to things. He said he did not want to create a misunderstanding. The therapist, a woman named Dr. Mehta, waited until he finished. Then she said, "You changed a security setting before inviting another woman into your home after midnight. What outcome were you hoping for?" Nathan stared at her. I watched the question reach him. Not emotionally. Logistically. There was no answer that helped. Finally he said, "I didn't want Mara to see it." Dr. Mehta nodded. "Thank you. That is the first direct answer you've given." I felt nothing. That frightened me more than rage would have. The first time Nathan tried to use the word surveillance in a legal setting, Denise let him finish. That was one of her talents. She never interrupted a person while they were building their own trap. We were in a temporary custody conference, sitting across from Nathan and his attorney at a long table that made everyone look more civilized than we felt. Nathan said he was concerned about my increasing dependence on monitoring technology. His attorney used the phrase, pattern of obsessive checking. I stared at the wood grain in the table and felt my face get hot. Denise did not look angry. That was how I knew she was about to hurt someone with paperwork. She opened a folder and slid one page across the table. "This is the system change log from the day before Ms. Bennett's work trip." Nathan's attorney picked it up. Denise continued. At 3:42 p.m., Mr. Bennett changed a household access profile so that real-time notifications would no longer display Emma Carter's name. That change was made before the late-night entries occurred. The room went quiet. Not dramatically. Professionally. Which was worse? Denise looked at Nathan. My client did not become dependent on monitoring technology. Your client attempted to alter what the monitoring technology would show her. Nathan did not speak. His attorney read the page again. That was the moment his favorite story died. Not because I defended myself. Because the system did. On the drive home, Nathan called. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message. I know I've said a lot of things badly. I know I hurt you. I just need you to remember we had a whole life before this. I listened twice. Then saved it. Not because it moved me. Because it was evidence of something else. The old life existed. It mattered. It still did not obligate me to reopen the door. The first official parenting plan had an entire section about access. Not because I was being dramatic. Because Denise insisted on it. No unscheduled entry into the house. No use of third-party caregivers without written agreement. No sharing alarm codes. No entering the property outside custody exchange windows. No deleting or altering security notifications connected to the children's primary residence. Nathan hated that paragraph. He said it made him look dangerous. Denise said, no. It makes the boundary readable. That became one of my favorite sentences. A boundary nobody can read is just a hope. I was done protecting my home with hope. The divorce was not immediate. We separated first. Temporary custody schedule. Financial disclosures. Therapy for the kids. New routines. New locks. New school pickup list. I removed Nathan from administrative access to the alarm system but gave him a limited code for scheduled parenting exchanges when Denise said that would look more reasonable than total restriction. Limited. Scheduled. Logged. He hated that. "You're treating me like a visitor," he said the first time he used it. I said, "You are." He stood on the porch, backpack over one shoulder, waiting to take the kids for the weekend. The old Nathan would have made a joke. The new Nathan looked at the keypad and said, "This is humiliating." I thought about Emma walking through that same door. I thought about the hallway frame. I thought about him telling me I treated our home like a crime scene. "No," I said. "It's accurate." That became my new favorite kind of sentence. Accurate. Not cruel. Not dramatic. Not designed to hurt. Just impossible to argue with if everyone was being honest. Emma left the university for a semester. I learned that from another sitter, who learned it from someone else. I did not ask. I hope she found a better version of herself somewhere away from men like Nathan and women like me, who could not give her absolution just because she was sorry. That is not sarcasm. I mean it. At 21, you can be responsible for harm and still not understand the machinery you stepped into. Nathan understood. That was the difference. He knew the house. He knew the kids. He knew me. He knew which system to adjust before I left. He knew not to call. He knew which explanation would sound caring. He knew to say he did not want to wake me before the presentation. He knew to call Emma practically family because that made my suspicions sound ugly. He knew. The divorce filing happened 3 months after Charlotte. By then, I had stopped expecting one final revelation to make the decision easier. There was no secret second phone. No hotel charge. No dramatic confession. Just 1,000 small proofs that the trust was no longer reparable in the shape it had once held. Denise filed on a Tuesday. I went to work afterward and sat through a budgeting meeting where a man named Colin argued for 12 minutes about licensing fees. Life is obscene that way. Your marriage can legally begin ending at 9:15 a.m., and by 11 you are being asked whether Q3 projections account for renewal churn. That night, I tucked Mason into bed. He held Rocket under his chin and asked if Daddy would still come to soccer. Yes. Will you? Yes. Will you sit together? I smoothed his hair. Probably not. Because you're mad? I thought about lying gently. Then I thought about Ava in the car. Because Daddy and I are figuring out how to be parents from different houses. Mason frowned. That's weird. Yes. Do I have to have 2 rockets? No. Rocket can travel. He considered that. Okay. That was enough for him that night. Children do not need the whole bridge at once. Just the next plank. A year later, I still lived in the house. Not because I won it. Because I bought out Nathan's share. It was expensive. Annoyingly expensive. The kind of expensive that made me reconsider every streaming subscription and develop a personal relationship with store-brand cereal. But I wanted the kids to have continuity. And, if I am honest, I wanted the house back. Not as evidence. Not as a crime scene. As home. So I repainted the front porch myself. Badly. Mr. Donnelly came over halfway through, watched me drip white paint onto the steps, and said, "You know professionals exist." I'm aware. You are offending the porch. I'm healing. He nodded, as if that explained everything. Then he took the brush from me and fixed the worst parts while pretending not to help. I changed things slowly. New curtains in the living room. A different rug in the hallway. No camera facing the children's rooms anymore. Ava negotiated that like a union contract. The alarm system stayed. Some people thought that was strange. My mother asked once if it made me anxious. No, I said. And I meant it. The system had not betrayed me. The system had told the truth. People sometimes confuse the thing that reveals pain with the thing that caused it. I did not. I kept the logs from that weekend in a folder. Not because I still needed them legally. Because sometimes, when co-parenting made Nathan charming again, when he showed up on time and brought Mason's forgotten cleats and made Ava laugh in the driveway, I needed to remember that good moments were not proof the bad ones had been imagined. That is the hardest part after betrayal by someone beloved. You miss them. Not the villain version. The real version. The one who knew how you took your tea. The one who sang fake opera while unloading groceries. The one who once slept on the floor beside a feverish child because the child asked him not to leave. I missed that Nathan. Sometimes I still do. But I do not mistake missing him for evidence that I should have stayed married to the other one. 2 years after the divorce, I had to go to another conference. This one in Chicago. Ava was 10. Mason was 7. Nathan had the kids for the weekend at his apartment, and my mother was back up. Before I left, I checked the alarm app out of habit. System armed. All doors closed. No guest users active. I stood in the kitchen with my suitcase by the door and felt the old memory move through me. Hotel bathroom. Phone buzz. Emma. 11:42 p.m. For a second, I was there again. Then Ava came into the kitchen wearing pajamas and holding a bowl of cereal she had absolutely not asked permission to pour. "Are you doing that thing again?" she asked. "What thing?" "Looking at the house like it's going to tell you something." I smiled. Maybe sadly. Maybe. She leaned against the counter. "Is it?" I looked at the phone. Then at my daughter. "No," I said. "It's just a house." She nodded like that made sense. Then she added, "But houses should tell the truth." I stared at her. Ava shrugged. "What? You always say doors don't open themselves." I laughed then. For real. The kind of laugh that loosens something. "You're terrifying." "I know." I hugged her carefully so the cereal would not spill. That weekend in Chicago, no alerts came. No strange disarms. No missed calls full of dread. I gave my presentation. A better one than Charlotte, actually. Afterward, I went back to my hotel room, took off my heels, ordered Thai food, and watched a terrible renovation show until I fell asleep. At 11:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. For 1 second, my entire body went cold. Then I looked. A text from Ava. "Dad let Mason bring Rocket to dinner and he dropped him in soup. Rocket survived." I sat on the bed and laughed until I cried. Not because soup was funny. Because the world had kept moving. Because 11:42 could become just a time again. Because a notification could be ordinary. Because my life had not ended in that hotel bathroom. It had only told me where the door was. People ask whether I regret not confronting Nathan immediately after the first alert. No. Not anymore. The first alert could have been explained. The second made a pattern. The logs made a timeline. The code change made intent. The hallway frame made contact. The neighbor footage made context. Emma's first apology gave me confirmation. Her later screenshots gave me the shape of the lie. Nathan's excuses made the decision. If I had confronted him on Friday night, he would have given me the charger story. If I had accepted it, I would have spent years wondering why I never trusted myself again. Instead, I let the house finish its sentence. That is what evidence does. It finishes the sentence your fear started but your hope keeps interrupting. The system only tells you a door opened. That part is true. It does not tell you why someone came in. It does not tell you what they said in your kitchen. It does not tell you whether your husband felt guilty before or after. It does not tell you how many years of marriage can fit inside one deleted message. But it tells you when. It tells you who. It tells you whether the person explaining the door is respecting reality or trying to edit it. And sometimes, when enough people lie about why, when is enough to save you. I used to think home was the place where trust meant you did not have to check. I know better now. Home is the place where trust and access are treated like things worth protecting. Where the people with codes understand that a code is not a loophole. Where safety is not used as decoration. Where the door opens for the right reasons. And where, if someone tries to turn your own house into a hiding place, the house remembers. For a long time, I thought the worst part was that Emma used her code. It wasn't. The worst part was that Nathan understood exactly what that code meant. It meant trust. It meant we believed she was safe around our children. It meant I could leave town and still believe the people inside my house respected the life we had built there. He did not just betray me with another person. He used the architecture of our trust to hide the betrayal. The alarm code. The notification settings. The bedtime routine. The fact that I was out of town trying to build a future for the same family he was quietly damaging. That was what I could not forgive. Not the door opening. The assumption that I would never think to ask why. Nathan remembered to delete his messages. He remembered to change the notification settings. He remembered to sound gentle. He remembered to tell me I was tired. He remembered to make my suspicion look like a flaw. But he forgot the simplest thing. The door kept score.